afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Association Rock Stars, where we hear about the journey and insights of some amazing association executives and partners for building the association industry of tomorrow. I'm your host, Lowell Aplebaum. I'm the CEO and strategy catalyst at Vista, Cova, where we partner with organizations on strategic facilitation and visioning. And it is my joy and my pleasure, and so far my laughter, it would seem, to have with me today Russ and Ian Webb. By day, Ian, I'm told, is the better looking of the pair. Ian works for the Printing and Imaging Association of Georgia and as the Director of Marketing and Engagement. He's a double graduate of the University of Georgia, holding a bachelor's degree in advertising and a master's degree in emerging media. By night, he works as a creative freelancer doing branding and digital strategy, primarily for other associations and the 501c3 foundations, finding his passion at the intersection of both print and digital strategy. He strives to make the world a better place through advocacy design, as well as to eat as many quesadillas as humanly possible. And we already got to see his really
Lowell froze.
No.
He's a tech ninja. He's a sunrise lover. He's aware of cool socks. He speaks some. He travels a lot. He's a Disney freak. And perhaps most importantly, he's Ian's dad. Welcome.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it. I think Lowell's having the same issues that we have sometimes that in my internet connection down here today. Maybe Lowell uses the spectrum as well.
So it's all good. This is the first time we're having father.
Hey Lowell, this is Amy. If you can hear me, stop sharing your video. Your internet connection is kind of bad. And we'll see if we can get you back. If not, I'll pop on and try to do this interview today.
Let's see if that works better.
Yep, you're sounding good.
I can hear you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So let's hear your cross superpowers. Russ, what's Ian's? Ian, what's Russ's superpower?
I'll go first. So Ian has the unique ability to be able to tell someone's story through images, through design. He can talk to a group and kind of figure out what it is that they do, who they are, and show that through their branding. And he's also taught me there's a very big difference between a logo and a brand. And he's able to tell an organization's story through their branding, and it's a pretty unique thing to be able to do.
I love that. I love that. Already you're talking about how he has taught you. It's wonderful.
For him, so anyone who knows us knows that when I was growing up, the thing that he would ask me every morning is, "What is today going to be?" And the answer is always, "Today is going to be a great day." So I would say his superpower is his like optimism or positivity, like his just general outlook on things, like, you know, approach a situation with positivity and good intent, and that's what you'll get out of it, rather than approaching it with any kind of negativity, and you'll feel that throughout the whole process.
Good lessons learned. We have powerful tellings of story through brand. We have positivity. Good things to lead us into a journey, into a conversation here. You know, we're having you on because clearly, you know, father and son are both working in the industry. Something that's come up in a number of these conversations is about the need for like empathy and understanding. And I'm just wondering if we could start there as you think about the leadership that you interact with. What do you see from our association industry today as sort of key places that leaders are succeeding or need to focus on?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So, you know, one of the things that I've noticed with the organizations that my personal organization and the ones that I interact with is that, you know, that listening has become it's always been important, but now it's become more important than ever. Hearing what your members are saying, understanding the issues that they're going through, and then addressing those needs. That's been super important for us. And right now we were Ian's wearing a shirt that says socially distant. And it's, it's interesting because we talk to our members all the time about, my members are in a people-facing business, and now they're being told they can't face people.
Yeah.
So it is such an interesting thing for our association to have to turn around and change the way that we are helping them. And I think that listening, is the number one skill. And I've seen, thankfully, a lot of great associations everywhere learn that listening is super important.
I would concur with that. I mean, so our association is, like Lowell said, it's the Printing and Imaging Association. So it's going to be a more traditional membership base, because we're talking commercial printers. So, I mean, if we're being completely honest, our board up until 2 years ago was 100% old white men over the age of 70. And so as me, like say that I was working for one of these companies, I'd come in, if I was coming into a association event or something, and this is who I saw as like leading the organization, I'd be like, no, this is not for me. So I think listening to your membership base, especially the youngest people in the membership, because these people are going to be the next people, and you have to almost get them in early and make them interested in wanting to stay involved and become leaders within their own organizations. Because if you don't, you basically are putting an expiration date on your association.
How are you each focusing on becoming better listening? You both are echoing listening, right? So I had you on because I think both of you are amazing listeners, but how is that a skill set that you look to deepen in yourselves?
Well, for me, I realized that, sometimes, we all listen to respond, not listen to hear. And so what I've started doing is making sure that I'm hearing all viewpoints before any decisions are made or before anything goes into process on that. And it's a hard skill. And the having the ability to understand that you're not hearing the whole story. And a lot of what's happened this year in our country with the people as being such a divided nation, and then a lot of stuff that's happened with the diversity and inclusion things, made me realize that I need to be a better listener, and I need to understand that I need to hear from all sides. And are we sure that the organization is inclusive, that our leaders are inclusive of everybody that we serve? That's been, for me, I take that extra time. Ian?
Yeah, I agree, especially, like I said, a couple of years ago, that was PIAG's board, was all old white men. And I think the board and my boss, Jason, they've done an amazing job at listening and kind of looking at all viewpoints and being able to recruit more diverse leaders onto the board. And then kind of is a much more micro example of just general listening that I do kind of on a daily basis is when I first started, we have every association, there's going to be a very vocal faction of the membership, and they're going to make things known to you. And if you don't kind of dig a little deeper, you're going to think that's probably the only opinion, the only, thing that they want to hear. So for example, one of my jobs that I do is I compile our magazine, and we do it quarterly. And when I first started, I listened to what my predecessor had told me about the magazine and how he compiled it. And then I listened to, a couple members that I would talk to, because they're very vocal or they call in a lot or whatever. And so in my brain, I had this picture of this is what membership wants from magazine. And then as I started going out and talking to more members and either on visits to sites or, calling them for something else, and I start a conversation, I started to learn that the reason that people didn't have an opinion is because they didn't listen in the past. They didn't think that the new generation of leadership would listen. So there's I don't want to say a stigma that associations are going to have to fight in the coming years. It's if your association was not, a super, A+ association in the 90s to the early 2000s, the early 10s, you're going to have to battle that going forward. And then now our members are more aware that Jason and I are willing and ready to listen. And we're excited to hear about the different things that our members want, not necessarily just what the vocal faction wants.
think what's interesting is that clearly each of you had depth of listening, but I think you also tell stories in different ways. I mean, that's what we heard a little bit at your introductions. And, listening is only as good as what we can learn from it, right? How it changes our perspectives, how it changes our actions. So from the listening you're both doing, I mean, Russ, you've been with the Apartment Association down there for 2 years now, coming up on
No,
it?
just about a year, 21 years with the other association before
21
that.
years with it. And then, Ian, you were just sharing about 2 years. So from what you're hearing, right, like you both have sort of fresh eyes in hearing, how are you translating that into actually how you're telling your story?
So for me, I mean, it's so funny. We were talking earlier about, I was talking with a buddy of mine running another organization, and basically was saying that, I'm, like Ian said, I'm an optimist. I only see the donut when other people see the whole. That's just me. It's who I am. But one of the most interesting things that I think by listening and what's come out of the stuff with COVID is that I realized that associations, a lot of times we don't want to get rid of those, those sacred cows, those things that we've been doing forever, doing the same way, and we just don't want to get rid of them, because what Ian said a minute ago about there's a small group of people who are very vocal, and we always say the ones who know it, the ones who know the least know it the loudest, and by actually taking this time and listening to what people are saying and hearing truly what they want, it's allowing us to kind of reshape a lot of what we do. Getting rid of some of the sacred cows, bringing in some things that our members find more valuable. And as we plan forward, realizing that another thing that so a lot of our members have said, we realize that we've really enjoyed your education, for example, and we could never really take advantage of it in person because it was too far for us to travel or whatever. But now that we've been doing virtual, so now we realize, for example, my association, we're going to be doing, even when we get back to all in-person stuff, we're going to have a virtual aspect of everything. We're going to be doing that automatically. So that's how we're taking a little bit of it and putting it in motion.
Yeah, we have very similar, in a way, where our associations are between him and I, even though they're completely different industries, they were kind of at the same place. That, my boss, who's amazing, he came in a couple of years ago to an association that just kind of remained stagnant for so many years. And so he's been big on listening, and then I've been really big on listening and trying to translate. So that might even be, the smallest of things is, so we used to do these events called mix and mingles. And I think they're great. They're little networking hours, just kind of a cocktail reception. There's really and truly, they're not really supposed to be work related. It's supposed to be get to know your colleagues in the industry. And I think that's a great thing for any association to use, because it's taking the people that are representing the industry out of the industry and getting to know each other on a personal level. Right. But we only hosted them in Atlanta, and Georgia is the biggest state east of the Mississippi. And we're talking, to get from Atlanta, from Valdosta, you're 4 or 5 hours. And so no one's going to drive that far to meet other people that live in the same area as them. So, the idea of taking these things on the road was an idea that we had, and we did, and it was very successful. I mean, some of them more successful than others, but that's just more of a, where we chose to host them. But that's the thing that, a good example is listening, people saying, we don't know who you are. Well, of course they didn't know who we are. We never came to them. They had to come to us. Right.
I love that. I mean, the idea of listening, telling stories, being where the people are whose story you're trying to tell. So I want to shift from organization focused for a moment to take advantage that I have a father and son here. Russ, did you ever guess that Ian was going to come into the association world? Is this a surprise?
Yeah, it was beyond a surprise. It's funny. I think when Ian was young, he was one of the only kids who probably could explain to somebody what an association actually was. Because as most of us, when we stumble into association work, although forever, Ian, when someone asked you when you were little what your dad did for a living, what did you say?
I said he moved boxes around.
I moved boxes around, yeah. But it
yes, obviously.
Yeah, never thought he would end up in the association space, although I always, he's got the right skill set for it, because like me, he's a problem solver. He likes to solve problems. He does. He likes to be challenged, and he doesn't do well with stuff that's monotony. The same thing every day. So, and I think that's a big part of associations, is that we get to get challenged every day with a different lineup.
Yeah.
Ian, how would you describe your own journey? I mean, I've known you all for more than a few years now, and the fact that you're not here riding your dad's coattails. I mean, you've had a good voice of vision leadership of your own for years now.
Yeah. I don't know what I wanted to do, for being completely honest. So my undergrad is in advertising, and I can talk about people until I'm blue in the face, but the advertising programs in the United States are very focused on sending you into work for an ad agency. So working in an agency structure where you will maybe work on like 4 or 5 accounts at a time, and you work on a team usually with like 4 or 5 people, and that's kind of it. But you do the same job just for different people, and so it's a changing environment, but it's never super different. And you never have full creative process over your job, because there's always going to be that senior executive or senior or the senior sales executive. So there's always someone over you that's going to not necessarily micromanage, but tell you the direction that you're going. So coming out of undergrad, I had no idea what I wanted to do, because I did not want to go the agency route, and I just knew that wasn't for me. So I went to grad school, did my research in 2 different kind of areas. One was nonprofit communication. It was basically doing work for Dad's old association. I did case studies and stuff out of that. And then also on aviation communication, so for airlines. And I actually really thought that the airline route was going to be where I was going to go, because it was the most interesting research I had done. I really knew it. I was really passionate about it. And then this opportunity came up, and I was like, this feels perfect. And so I took the job, and that's kind of how I got here.
I love that, the road was sort of laid before you even got there, and you were able to take what you were able to learn and apply it. It's a turbulent time right now, clearly, in so many different ways. As the 2 of you have conversations, any predictions or foresight you have of what do you think our industry associations are going towards?
I mean, I think there's never been a more pivotal point than right now for associations. I think that associations, and I hate to use the term prove their worth, but that is kind of a lot of what I think as businesses are being forced to evaluate every dollar and every expenditure. I think that, if an association is providing value, that it's one of the things that will be, protected in the budget line. And I think, again, it's one of those things where we need to look at everything that we're doing. And I am lucky that I have a, super bright son who's, Gen Z, and I can ask him questions about his generation and how they feel about things. And I've been doing that with him for years, because for me, I always want to make sure that we are not only, marketing and being good to who we have, but who we're going to have as members. That's been very important for me. But yeah, the pivotal time, I think, of associations right now is going to require them to probably re-examine the way that they've done a lot of things in the past. And I can't imagine that most associations aren't going to have to make some fairly major shifts at where they thought they were going to be, even a year ago.
Yeah. In a way, I think we approach it slightly differently. You were kind of approaching it more from a organizational standpoint. Mine is more the value, or what the specifics things that associations offer. I think gone are the days that we do these god awful networking, fake handout business. It's so nice to meet you. It's not nice to meet you. I don't want to be here. Neither do you. That's the thing that, my generation is way more open about. This is dumb. Why do we do this? Right. So I think it's going to shift more to a, casualer environment in terms of networking, and like letting it not be forced, but associations need to become the catalyst and create an environment where networking can happen, but don't force it. If I go to a conference, like the last thing I want to see is a 2-hour networking opportunity slot on the schedule. Like you're just gonna put us in a room and tell us network. Like that's not how networking works. You have to have something in common, like hosting more of topical things, or like hosting. I think a great example is GSA that we're both involved in does a tech showcase in November. I think tech showcase is like one of the best ideas ever, because it brings all these people together like around the idea of technology. And then you can network with people there about technology, or if you have questions you want answered, you can get them answered about technology. So you're not like at some general conference trying just to network in general. You have a specific purpose to be there.
Agreed.
The time on these always goes by so quickly, and I have many more questions I want to ask, but I'll move to what I love to close with. And Ian, I'm going to ask you first, because I think we'll have some different perspectives here. Knowing that, of course, that there are many things left to do. As you think about your role, what legacy do you want to leave behind within your life within the association world?
I think mine would be like, I operate on the mindset of like I was a scout, I was a Cub Scout. And so it's like, leave nothing behind is kind of the thing. But I kind of have this mindset of leave the world better than I found it. So if I inherited a mess, I want to clean that mess up and give that to the next generation. Like, I don't want to just hand off. I feel like for so long, generations have just been passing the mess down. And like, I want my generation to be the one that fixes the mess in each industry, whatever, education, advocacy, that kind of everything like that in whatever industry that, we represent, fix the messes of our association and hand it out. So like that is for in general, and then like a specific job. Like, if I ever leave PIAG, I want to make sure that, I kind of wrap PIAG up a nice little bow and give it to my successor to be like, I took care of this. I want you to take care of it like I did too.
And Russ, do you have legacy contemplations?
Yeah, I also want Ian's generation to fix the problems. I also would like that done. For me, as far as, association stuff goes, if I can touch enough people through when I speak or when I send them information or whatever, I would facilitate. If I could have enough people understand that that change is not a 4-letter word. If I could get to that point and have organizations realize that changing is important, and that growth is inevitable, and that we need to always continue to evolve as organizations. If I could have that mindset with the people that I've worked with and the people that that come after me, that say, this now I understand. We don't have to be who we've always been. We can be something different. Then I will feel like that's accomplished something really good. And and then the last thing I would say is, what the thing I told Ian his whole life growing up, the first choice you make every day when you open your eyes is today's going to be a good day or today's going to be a bad day. And you make the choice to make it a great day. And if you can do that, then you'll impact so many other people. Enthusiasm's contagious. It truly is.
Well, I know any day I get to spend time with the two of you, it's a great day. And I'll say my own legacy, I hope I get my own opportunity at some point to be able to share a stage, virtual or otherwise, with my own children, and be able to, share what is clearly a relationship of not just love and support, but of intelligence and insight and voice that industry needs. I'm just very grateful to both of you for joining us today.
Thanks for having us. We truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Want to, of course, give a thank you and a shout out to Amy Hager, who's making all the magic happen. She's there helping to moderate the questions and to make sure that I stay on track. And of course, thank you to all of you for joining in as well for each of these. We'd love to hear your questions, to hear your comments, to hear your suggestions of who else you think should be on Association Rockstars. A place that we're looking to build further support and to elevate profiles and people in our community. Looking forward to our next conversation, and until next time, Association Rock.